Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all on behalf of ISTD. So, today's program is all about leading with numbers, business analytics for professionals in post COVID 19 era. Before we start the program, I would like to invite our national president, Dr. Nataraj Ray, to say something about ISTG. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Roma Gomes, RBP East. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear past president, president of Emeritus, chairman, and secretary of the chapter, and other ISTD friends. We welcome all of them in this webinar session being conducted by ISTD Western Region along with ISTD National Office. In this turbulent and uncertain time, we, the ISTDN, felt that we should do some knowledge sharing session for our members and entire HR fraternity across the country and HR management fraternity across the country. We therefore decided to provide a platform to eminent speakers, business leaders, visionary leaders, statutory leaders, and thought leaders to share their experience during this difficult time. With this, we have earlier many distinguished speakers speak in this forum or in this webinar. Today, this program is organized by our RBP East, Dr. Roma Gomes, ISTD. She is instrumental to organize this program. Thank you, Romaji, for organizing this program. Today, we have a very special guest with us, our own dear Sri Rahul Bose, business consultant. He is a life member of ISTD and a very, very eloquent speaker, and also in all activities of ISTD in Eastern India, he is participated. Apart from them, we have our Vikram Bose, Senior General Manager, IBM. Also, we have with us Ayan Banerjee, Life Member, ISTD, and Managing Partner, Edix Care Learning Services. Today, the program will be moderated by Dr. Roma Gomes. Thank you, Rumaji, for your program today. Apart from that, today's topic is leading with numbers, business analytics for professionals in post-COVID-19. I tempted to tell something about this today's topic, but I wish to learn many things from Rahul Bose and Vikramji and Ayanji today's program. But in the business analytics and professionals in post-COVID, so there is a lot of things we have to discuss. We have to learn today that how employee will do after COVID, because the new normal employee are work from home. I am working some organization where many restrictions is there: sanitization, hand sanitization, office sanitization, masks, and all this problem faces by manufacturing organization, because we have given not full manpower. Apart from that, we have some problem for the women workers, because they are try to work in the industry, but instead of that, we are going in the homework. So that is the problem for this COVID-19. So business across the globe, business has come down. We are reviewing our policies to suit the post-COVID era and plan to HR policies how to do it. So it is a global prospect, and all the members of the HR fraternity are in a very typical position to rewrite the HR policies and others. Even the restrictions are being slowly lifted now in India, but the lockdown phase 2 is going on. But instead of that, many organizations are facing the business problem. They are not getting proper business across the globe. So all these questions will be answered by our three eloquent speakers, Ayan Banerjee, Rahulji, and also our Vikramji. Hope everyone enjoyed today's program. Thank you once again to our members for participating for this program. I have seen many of the NC members participated today, so that I would welcome all of the NC members across the country. And I have seen one or two past presidents also attended. Thank you, sir, for participating in this program. I thank the ISTD NHQ team, especially the Gurvinder ji, and also our director, Dr. A.C. Joshi, for kinds of all the support for all the chapter for giving their allotment times for doing the webinar. Thank you, Joshi ji and Gurvinder ji, for your full support on behalf of National President. I will be happy that every chapter is doing some program in this 50th celebration of ISTD. So I am concluding my speech. Now I request Dr. Roma Gomes, please take over the program and moderate and anchor the session. Thank you once again, all the National Council member, past president, and also chairman of the chapter, secretaries and others who have participated to this program. I thank you once again, and over to Dr. Roma Gomes for this program. Thank you, Dr. Roma Gomes. Thank you very much. Roma ji, unmute koriye. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, unmute. Okay.
Yeah. So thank you, our president, sir. So now I have got a privilege to introduce our panel speaker. The first name which comes to my mind, and as well as I think ISTD, Mr. Rahul Bose. So Mr. Rahul, he is a business consultant to IBM Global Service after 18 years of on-roll service with IBM. 4 decades of career built on a solid industrial base, certified learning and development specialist working across nations. He had worked with Vail for 8 years as a senior engineer, Tata Steel for 9 years, PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting 1.5 years, MBA at XLRI's Jamshedpur, and he is also a mechanical engineer from Jadavpur University, Kolkata. So he is the part of the acquisition when IBM acquired PwC in 2002, helping with the transition. Ever since 2002, Rahul has done India, Asia Pacific, and global roles, played a key role in enhancing crucial knowledge and skill sets for global teams on technological selling and negotiating. He has got very good hobbies. I think that's all of us are doing also the same thing, kind of traveling across India. He also traveled Southeast Asia, China, Middle East, and Europe. So this is what Rahul is. So now I would like to introduce Mr. Vikram Bose. He's also another panel speaker. So he's a globally reputed IT professional with over 20 years of experience across the world, worked with client on-site projects in US, Ireland, Taiwan, Japan, Nigeria, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and Mauritius. He has got functions in IBM, analytics, banking, finance and risk management, finance audit and treasury. Employers with, he worked with PwC, Reliance and Haldia Petrochemicals, SAP, iFlex Oracle. Currently, he is with IBM Global. Current work role for IBM is building client solutions, analytics, blockchain and change management. He has got hobbies, an avid traveler, photographer, and nature enthusiast, been to the Arctic also. Okay, so today we have our anchor, Mr. Ayun Banerjee. Ayun is having around 29 years of leading high-performance business teams across nations. His business lines is in engineering projects, financial planning, risk management, insurance, specifically in NBFCs. His functions in terms of sales, marketing, business operations, learning and development. He is certified globally on multidisciplinary modules for fellow Life Office Management Associations, USA. He is also associated with the Financial Planning Standard Boards, India. He is partnering 60 reputed corporate organizations and colleges across nations, certified thousands of professionals to sell and train, contributed 50,000 learners, days over 2 decades across nations. He is a member of ISTD, NHRDN, L&D Global, and IMA. His hobbies are travel, photography, and social media. So this is what is our very cultured enthusiast panels as well as the anchor. So I would like to ask Ayun to take it over or go forward for this discussion. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ayun.
Thank you so much indeed, Dr. Gomes. And good evening to everybody. Thank you so much to the ISTD head office and the national leadership, Dr. Nataraj Rai sir, Dr. Joshi sir. Thanks a lot to the ISTD Kolkata chapter leadership under Dr. Ruma Gomes. Today is a great day for the world. I was going through my calendar. Today is 4th of July, the day of national independence of the United States in 1776. This is also the day when Swami Vivekananda ji journeyed from this world to the next in 1902. And we are all deeply inspired by his enormous contribution to the world. So on that note, let's get started. Cordial welcome to all the participants around this call today. We have quite a few people, and many people are joining in every minute. We have senior corporate professionals, HR leaders, business leaders. We have aspiring college students from all fields, humanities, commerce, science, engineering, management supposed to join us. And of course, we have a few people outside India as well. So feel free to invite your friends as well so that we can have a full house. And let's get started. So as we get into the topic itself, we have a very good panel today from IBM, people who are practitioners of the concepts of business analytics in practical scenarios. So feel free to have questions to all the participants. If you have questions, you can chat, you can put it in the chat box, and Gurvinder, of course, would be taking those questions and handing it over to a moderator, Dr. Gomes. Towards the end of the session, we'll have an open house and we'll discuss the answers to those questions. Now, as we start off, let us start at the very beginning. Business analytics. So Rahul Da is my senior in school and college and my mentor. Vikram, we have worked together for many years. So let me ask this very basic question as we start off. What, according to you, is business analytics?
Okay, thanks, Ayon, and good evening, everybody. It's a Saturday afternoon, so really value your times. Between now and the weekend is not too far, yet you have invested 1 hour. So we'll try, and it's a long story. So Ayon, answering you, it is actually what is business analytics is the use of statistics and the use of the power of data to make intelligent decisions for corporates and otherwise. I mean, to cut the chase, just giving you the basics. So that is something I had in mind to give you as an answer.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Rahul Da. We will come back to this. Would like to know from Vikram now, business analytics, Vikram, something which you've been handling across the world in various geographies. So how is business analytics changing the face of the business world across geographies? Mute.
Yeah, is it better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So just to give you an example, it was easy in the let's say we go back to the pre-analytics phase. It was very easy to say, Dettol 100 ml bottle, how much did we sell in Calcutta or West Bengal? That was there. We had enough systems before all this, but probably we could not figure out quickly. That is the important thing. Quickly, that between April 2020, say March 2020, before COVID started, and today we are in July. So April, May, June, July, April, May, June, three months. What was the spurt of Dettol and similar products by their each SKU, 100 ml, 200 ml, 500 ml, by region, by selling outlet, there can be multiple outlets. What has been the variation? It is very easy to say, it's gone up, and Dettol is still not available easily. For the decision maker in what Reckitt Benckiser is the organization, to make a quick call within his limited resources, because he was not able to run his factories, he was not able to get his full workforce, to make a quick decision to where to increase production very quickly. There is no luxury of 1 month, 2 months. You have to quickly take a decision. Analytics was the answer.
True. So that's interesting. That's really interesting. So does it mean, Vikram, that going forward, let's say over the next 6 months, is it possible for Reckitt Benckinsale or any of the competitors of similar products to plan their production process in these tough times? Yeah.
Absolutely. Not only production process, going deeper into their product range, they can decide whether they should prioritize 100 ml bottles over 250 ml bottles because they
Absolutely.
have a limited capacity. So
Absolutely.
that's the power of analytics.
Sure, great, great, excellent. So I'm sure, Rahulda, this also applies to other categories of products as well, right? I mean, not only Dettol. Dettol is a wonderful example in these times. Any other situation that comes to mind?
So I'll put it this way, the first two things which I wanted to say and what really triggered me. So once during my childhood, there was a little boy who used to be my neighbor in central Calcutta. And this was this match between Tony Lewis and Gavaskar. Tony Lewis and Wadekar. They were the captains in Eden Gardens. And Vishwanath was batting very well. So he told me, and he came from a business community, he told me, taking my pet name, that will the next ball be a sixer or a four? So I said, I really don't know. And when I grew in my autumn years, there was a trainer from IBM called Henry Donald. He was a very fashionable, erudite, English, British accent, what have you. So that person told me, how many butts of cigarettes fall in Paris every night? Now, both these questions led me to think that there is something called probability. So in the childhood, whether Vishwanath will score a sixer or a two or a four, late cut, or whether how many people will smoke. Now, what of the population will smoke? How many are non-smokers? How many will throw in their butts at Paris in the night in a day, and how many pieces? If I were to calculate this, I would have to go to a hypothesis. I'd have to make assumptions to get to data. So cutting the chase, because I know we are on a question answer mode. This can be used for four pillars across industries. One is regarding your customers, and much has been told about customers, whether they'll buy, what is their profiling, whether they're likely to buy, whether likely to, not to buy, etc. The other is finance. So if I look at a dashboard by which a company operates, the other key fulcrum would be finance. So whether this would go down the drain, whether it's a non-performing asset. The other is risk. If I know that the probability of an event, like a toss of a coin, so we know that it's 0.5, it will be heads unless it's a Cholet coin. So, so there's a clear division, But let's say if it's an unknown, you can hedge risks. And the final is on your operations. So you can also in your operations, and let's say you take mining, you take banking, you take CPG, you take retail, you take pharma, you take what have you. It's by the power of analytics. The customer piece, the finance piece, the risk piece, and the operations piece.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. In fact, Rahulda and Vikram both. So are we saying that, let us say, retail? So retail can decide that, the particularly modern format retail, what color of apparel, what color of shirts and jeans should figure in the month of October in, let's say, southern Delhi, vis-a-vis, let us say, Bangalore, Kempegowda. So are these decisions that can be taken using analytical tools, right? I'm sure the answer is yes to this. So let's understand now from Vikram. Vikram, this analytics journey, it is not from today, right? I mean, it's been there for quite some time now. So what's the journey like for the past, say, 10, 15, 20 years?
So when it comes to technology, what we have noticed is so far, things change very fast, things are changing. Now, in terms of technology adoption, usually the financial services industry has been the leader because they need technology more than others. There are security issues, and they have had funds. So analytics came immediately after ERP. So if you recall the technology history, ERPs would have started around the mid-90s. Right. That is also the time when internet started. and very soon analytics came into the picture. But the earliest form of analytics that a lot of us are familiar, have been familiar, are the pivot tables in Excel, Microsoft Excel. That is actually the first rudimentary analytics that we all got exposed to when we started learning MS Office in the 90s. Now, let's say if I roughly say that around the late 90s, analytics started taking shape. It was again the financial services industry which first started adopting. Now, there were limitations. One is, of course, a perpetual limitation of cost. So that was always there. But there were also limitations in terms of computing power. So the computing power that we had then was limited, and analytics is something which has to process very high volumes of data. You cannot process, let's say, 100,000 data items and do out an analytics. It's not work. You can do, I think, 65,000 lines you can do in Excel itself. There's no point. Now, the computing power started improving, I think, around the 2005s. That's when the real power started improving. And even today, there's a limitation which will only be addressed when we have quantum computing in reality. So analytics has still not reached its maximum capacity. It will not reach till quantum computing is in reality. Now, one is the processing.
Okay.
Now, I'll just add one more thing which has been a limitation and is still a limitation, is the availability of data. We will come to that later.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for this, Vikram. Thanks. I was speaking to somebody who's a banker in one of the world's biggest banks, and he was saying that based on the credit card usage history of his millions of customers, it is possible for his bank to predict how many customers, how many credit card users would be filing for a divorce in the next 3 years with 99.9999% of confidence, accuracy level. So is that the power of data? Is that where analytics, can play a role as far as retail customers are concerned? And I'm sure there are a lot of derivative products also come up. So let me ask Rahulda and Vikram both. I mean, what are the broad trends? This is a question that many of my friends have been asking. What are the broad trends that you see today in the world of analytics?
Okay, thanks, Vikram. I'll just go first and then you go.
Sure, please.
So, it started, as Vikram said, that it started from Excel or MS Access, those big places where you could keep data. Till people went into Cognos, went into SPSS, into packages. So you had this whole change. And now, if you do not know Python or if you do not know R, so you are not there. Data science sells more than MBAs, if I may make that statement. I mean, it's a new thing. So what I see across, it started with statistics. If you look at analytics, it started with mean, median, mode, the simple things we had. And then Indian Statistical Institute would do such a lot of projects, government-aided projects, which funded into the 5-year-old plan. That what would be the tendency of mankind, and those were used for the greater good. Now, for private companies, it has come to be a very handy tool to predict business outcomes, to predict, as I said, to make business, so many decisions which are resting on intelligent, for example, how many, like you said, that how many people will, the marriage will be annulled. That was your point of view. So I know of one guy who said that I can tell you how many people will leave your company. So he has modeled attrition. Now, some attritions are wanted, some attritions are unwanted. So he's gone to that level of perfection, and that more or less matches. That in the next 2 quarters, so many people will leave me. So it is like, I remember this old story when Akbar asked Birbal, how many pigeons are there in this city of, Lucknow or Oud? And then Birbal said 7,56,233. Then Akbar said, if it is 7,56,238, then sir, 5 aadmi to rishtedar se yahan baith gaye honge. If there are less, then they have gone to their relatives' place. So, it is no longer like that. It is more or less an exactitude science with a curriculum, which has come in with tools, with SPSS Modular, with Python, with R, with data science, a rigorous curriculum, which more or less makes a person ready to take on such jobs. And just to extend the analogy further before Vikram takes in all our projects, there is always a data analyst. Now, why is there a data analyst? Is that guy is there for crunching, or a business analyst. Now, these professions, when I joined IBM in 2002, it was, I mean, if you knew SAP, you are the king. If you knew ABAP, you are the king. But today, if you are good in data, big data, if you know Hadoop, so they are becoming the more prized commodity than the original lords. So this is, I end it here so that Vikram can allude to it and how you see it going across. Vikram, on to you.
No, Rahul, absolutely. You have hit the nail on the head. So just to add to that, Ayun, to answer your question as well, the two important things that have happened in the last couple of years is, and it has happened to all branches of technology. One is the emergence of cloud. So you have much cheaper way of storing data. The other big thing that has happened to analytics is artificial intelligence. So now analytics is coming with a layer of AI. So that is the new skill that is important to understand. And let me tell you, everybody is learning, including me. I am also learning. So if somebody says, I know everything, he's clearly not telling the truth. Everybody is learning because the subject itself is evolving. And more importantly, the market is also evolving. So it is not only about technology. We have to know what the market needs and what the market wants. And what the market needed in the month of February 22 is not what the market needs today. Things have completely changed. So it is changing that fast. So everybody is struggling, everybody is learning. And that is the beauty of this world. You are continuously learning, you are continuously being challenged. Even today, we have to have a man, and Rahulda is the boss for that, is that you have to do a minimum X amount of training every year to get your the normal bonus. Otherwise, you will not get it, irrespective of your performance. Rahulda, please correct me if I'm wrong. This is becoming more and more challenging for all IT professionals because the world is changing very, very fast. I can't hear you.
Yeah, thanks, Vikram. Wonderfully expressed. In fact, I remember that story. Every morning on the plains of Africa, the gazelle wakes up and thinks it has to run faster than the cheetah to stay alive. And every morning on the plains of Africa, the cheetah wakes up and thinks, I have to run faster than the gazelle to stay alive. Okay. So gone are the days when one graduation degree would have been enough, right? I mean, we have to equip ourselves every single day. So in the 60s and 70s, probably a science degree was good enough. Okay. And then in the 80s and 90s, probably engineering degree counted a lot. And a CA degree counted a lot. And after that, probably it was MBA, which was the latest. And today, I hear from all my corporate clients across countries, India, outside India, that unless they are into data, unless they are into analytics, it is really, really tough. So that's the current situation. I'm sure analytics is playing a role even in this COVID-19 era, right? With the government launching the Arogya Setu. Do we see application of analytics over there?
Oh, absolutely. So in fact, I'll go a step ahead. So Government of India, which has been a slow adopter of technology, is actually launching a massive technology platform. It's called PMJAY. It's a massive program, and a lot of bidders, including IBM, are participating in it.
Sure.
Certain things I can't disclose now, but I'm actually amazed at the speed at which the government is working.
Wonderful.
It is actually, they don't have a choice. It's not. I'm not getting into political parts, but they don't have a choice but to move fast.
Wonderful.
And analytics is absolutely required to understand, because human body is very unique. So they need to understand which part of India is behaving in which way from a medical perspective. That's a very important data for the government. It will take a while, it will not happen. They have to collect a lot of data to analyze that, but it is coming.
Wonderful. So do you see a lot of engagement of people in these? Do you see a lot of engagement of young people in these fields?
Absolutely. So I think the question that you would want to ask me is what kind of roles people can take up. So to add to your earlier comment that engineering was the call of the day, one important and interesting thing about this subject is you do not need a science degree or an engineering degree. I don't have one. I am an accountant by qualification. So it is more about having an interest in numbers. That is important. You don't have to be a maths expert either, but you have to have an interest and knack for numbers. It is because you have to understand that while 2 plus 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 can also tend to 4. It's more about the calculus way of thinking than the arithmetic way of thinking. So
Sure.
that thinking is very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks. It's really great to know this. So in fact, in this post-COVID era, the flattening of the curve that people are discussing, is that also connected to analytics?
Well, analytics can use this data to interpret, but the problem with analytics will be that somebody has to provide that expert knowledge to the system to be able to analyze. Now, the system is not a doctor. The system will not be able to interpret why it is rising in Bombay and it is not rising in Calcutta, something like that. So somebody has to provide that knowledge to the system for the
Okay.
system to analyze that further. And that is where these subject matter experts come in.
So that brings us, in fact, to the next issue, which is normal and natural. Are there some hiccups? Are there some challenges in this wonderful journey of business analytics?
Absolutely. So a lot of analytics projects, like other IT projects, have failed, not because of technology, but because the business logic was not properly understood and therefore implemented into the system. The business logic is key for the system. The system will do what it is supposed to do. That is not the issue. But unless the people who are building the system have the business logic, the system will not work. It will not be useful enough. It will generate some reports, but otherwise it will essentially be, as we say, garbage in, garbage out.
And also, if I were to add to
Yes,
Vikram,
please.
why do analytics, where do they fail? Now, if you try a double technique, okay, on one hand, you're using very sophisticated things such as a Cognos or an SPSS to predict that so many people will do so many things in the next. But at the same time, you have people in power who might want to trash it. That, okay, all this is good, but I have an intuition, So I am born with intuition. So during that situation, there would be an executive distrust or a sort of, negation of whatever is scientifically right. Pretty much the agony which Galileo had to bear years ago, despite knowing that all your analysis is correct. But maybe there might be somebody who might be right or wrong. But that person might say that, okay, all this data is good, but I don't think the curve will go this way. I would rather think that this will be the new path which I predict. So I think that it has got to lot to a human interface. So analytics, I think the scope of analytics is to make it more human friendly. I mean, given that the power of data, given that you have a power of tools, if it's a BERT or a Zipelin or whatever is the tool which you apply, but it's at the end, it's at the hand of the user or the manager or the leader who actually wants that whether it to fly or let it not fly.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
I would just append to
Oh, absolutely.
the
So
hiccups.
what you are referring to is executive sponsorship. So that is critical. That has to be there in any case. No second thoughts about that. Absolutely.
So Rahul and Vikram both, are we saying that it's not just a matter of somebody crunching some numbers and statistics, it's also about buy-in, creating buy-in for the senior most leadership team?
Absolutely.
And in this buy-in, the data analysts and the data scientists, because they are back-end, they're not great at it. For example, you deal consultants, you deal clients all over. So you are that savvy self, you know how to, walk the talk and be presentable. But if I had looked at people in projects, the guy is good at Excel. He doesn't need to talk to clients in Elizabethan English or, all the good English that we know of many people who speak. That is not desired. So he's a guy who's good in vernacular, good in mathematics, and does his job on Excel. He does a fair day's job, takes his fair day's pay. Now, the moment you say that, no, you explain it too. So I have seen all across the world, whether in Romania, in Latvia, in India, in Bangalore, in Calcutta, very good guys, but very bad at presentation. So that is where possibly there's a disconnect. And so despite your best of product or your best analysis, the boss or the manager or the team lead or the project manager says, okay, Vikram, you have done a great job, but I have the veto power. So this is where it sort of fails. So maybe we can do something. This is a scope of opportunity for the data analysts to also be savvy and say, hey, though I am not client facing, I am back end, but I am as good as you. When it comes to, wheeling and dealing and getting a buy-in, as you say. The word buy-in has a connotation of buying in. So I leave it at that, but that is one of my initial thoughts.
So great, Rahul. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Just one more point to add to what Rahul, I'm merely adding to it, is that, what happens is there is a client and there is an IT vendor. The IT vendor is hired by the client to do the project. They do the project, they get their sign-off, take the money and go. The big lacking that happens is that the client organization is not brought up the curve to even use the system, understand the system. And that is where, people working in the client's organization have a large scope to come up the curve, have these skills, these areas bring into their expertise so that they become kind of they take the value of analytics to their own employers, to the others. So let's say in a large project, if there are 10, 15 people in the client who are trained, and mature organizations do that, they will get their own people trained on the subject so that they can move this system ahead. They are the champions of that system after the vendor leaves. That is very, very critical.
So that's a wonderful point. In fact, it's opens up a lot of areas because there is a lot to be done to take this message of business analytics and its results to the last mile, right? So that requires a lot of different kinds of personality profiles. I'm sure Rahul relates to this beautifully. Different personality profiles of people required to complete this whole process of business analytics getting implemented. I'm sure Vikram would have seen this across the world, I mean, in his role on a regular basis, and Rahul also in the process of communicating. So that takes us, in fact, to both of us at 2030. How do we see business analytics changing the face of society, economy, the world?
Rahul, do you want to go first?
No, you go first, then I go.
Okay, I mean, of course, it's big, but it is also dependent on how these projects, these engagements, these initiatives are moved forward by the respective organization. By the way, governments are taking up analytics. Government of India has an analytics project going right now as we talk on indirect taxes. So even the government has started. Yes, it is moving very slowly. There are challenges, there are issues. But the big thing that will happen is, see, there was a time where everything was based on hunch. Some big boss will say, it is my experience, I know, you do it this way. He will look at some numbers, of course, but it was on his hunch. Then came the initial analytics days where we said, data. Ultimately, we will go only by data. But now we are moving to a stage where you have to have data, but you also have to have the story around the data. COVID will start that phase where you have to have data, but you also need to know why this is happening because of certain things which the data will not be enough. So data will be necessary, but not a sufficient condition. But it is absolutely necessary. Without data, nothing will happen, but data will not be sufficient.
And just to allude to Vikram, if you look at 2030, which is not very far away, so 2 prime ministers away or 2 elections away, let's say, today is American independence, so you have a governance which will kick in, let's say 2 more presidents of US, and you have 2030 here. Now, what will change? COVID was unprecedented. Okay, nobody really, maybe there were people who predicted. Now, this was something where I would say analytics possibly didn't do its job. Nobody could predict. But now that it is upon us, I think the way ISTD, and here the president's role comes in, as Natarajan says, if we can have a sensitization of analytics, that would go a great way in helping people in 2030. For the simple reason that what is analysis? At the end of the day, if you cut the chase out, you're trying to make meaning from something very abstruse, from something very hazy. So let's say I let you onto a field which is full of fog, and I tell you, hey, Arun, why don't you bring me something from that haze? So analytics is giving you that clarity by slowly uncluttering that data gives you. So for example, if you look at detective stories, if you look at Feluda or Byomkesh Bakshi, let's talk a little bit here. So what do? They unravel a mystery. They do a process of elimination. That is also analytics. And slowly they hone down into the most possible criminal or the suspect, now whether it's for good. So in case of, Satyajit Ray, the guy would be taken to the police. In case of Byomkesh, the guy would be a hero for a national cause. So you never know. Now, I leave it to the imagination of people. But the point here is, like a detective, in corporates also people want people to unravel. So you need to have sleuths in corporate, in a garment, those who's good at data. They can splice, dice up the whole Rubik's Cube and find what is actually necessary. So I think this will be on the rise. And I can already see that Python and R are being courses which are now becoming, which was once upon a time, kept in the dust long back. Oh, it's not necessary. We have, smarter tools. They're being now called back. So hark back to old things, hark back to statistics, more into data sciences, as we said. So I think there would be an acceleration for the simple reason the uncertainty element is going up very high. For example, the way we lived the last 50 or 60 years, the next 10 years will not be that way. I mean, if you go out on the road, you can see. Who would have ever imagined that you come out with a mask? In Southeast Asia, I've seen people wearing masks, but not in India. So it's culturally not there. So people start sweating. Now what will happen? There'll be good things. Okay, this will become a fashion statement, and and so on and so forth. Imagination can go wild. But the little point which Vikram and me wanted to make is the pace at which uncertainty will accelerate will actually be the trigger for analytics to go as fast as it can. So it will have to catch up with that uncertainty race, which COVID has thrown upon us, because we were certain a classroom education would have happened. Today, online education is the order of the day. So, it will be the new prophet. If I were to say a little bit grandly, analytics will be the new prophet, who will try to say that this is what will happen. And maybe, 95% he'll be right, 5% it will not work. So just a broad take on your question. Where in 2030 we see ourselves?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I see quite a questions coming up in the chat box. Good. So please feel free. Humble request to all the participants. Please put in your questions. Gurvinder would be there to collate them and present it to us. And I'm sure the experts would also be interested to, kind of give answers to this. One question that comes to mind with almost 100 people around this call is that there are people from college and there are parents also. So they are interested to know what kind of careers would there possibly be in the next, say, 10 to 15 years. If anybody could throw some light on this, please.
Rahulda, you want to start?
No, you go. I'm just answering one question.
Okay. So first of all, a lot of careers. The most important careers, I will not get into the technical ones, because that we know. There are a lot of technical roles that are available, but the non-technical roles are actually more interesting, in the sense that somebody who understands data, or now to understand data, data is very industry specific. So let's say I work for a telecom company, and I'm working, but I need to understand data of my industry, my company, my employer, to be able to interpret things. And telecom will have its own features. Now, I am not a telecom expert, but as a telecom user, there could be things like what are the patterns that you see in a person's usage or a person's customer behavior, which indicates something. Now, this a person when working in a telecom company will get to know over a period of time. That is the reason why, why do you say that, do you have my industry experience? When those people go to hire somebody, they prefer a person with that industry's experience. So that is one area, the understanding of data. As Rahul said, they are called data analysts. They are, the senior guys are called data architects. So that is one very important role. The other very important role is the business role for the systems. He will not code. He will not do database administration, but he will provide insights to the IT guys who come from IT vendors that these are the problems of this business, of this company. Can you now suggest what are the kind of analytics that we can think of? So that interface guy between the IT vendor and the client seniors who gets to understand the business, understanding of business is very, very important. Now, otherwise it will never happen. And who can provide these insights to the IT guys who come from the vendors, that these are the areas where we have this challenge. Now, this will ideally come from the senior, but we all know that ultimately it's the juniors who provide something inputs to the seniors and then they tell us. So that layer is still missing, especially in India. It is completely missing in most companies. It is not there.
Great. So are we saying that target versus achievement, something that is an eternal issue in sales? So that will be more data driven in the days ahead, right? So in a telecom sector, probably in a cluster or in a circle, people will know that, okay, so many new housing complexes expected, so many youngsters coming in, so much of geo hotspots do I need, so much of SIM cards are required in the next 5 to 7 years. If I'm an FMCG company, I will know what SKUs or what size and price I should be doing, what is my pricing strategy, what is my competitor strategy. So all that would come. From an HR point of view, are we saying that we can predict quarter-wise what is the attrition? So therefore, what is the attrition I'm comfortable with? What is my strategy for retention? So from supply chain point of view, are we saying that if I'm running a toll plaza, I know from the number of empty trucks going from one direction to the other, whether there is a recession about to come in? Are these some of the things where analytics will play a role increasingly in the days to come? Is that what's going to happen?
Absolutely. So I will go a step forward and I'll take that HR example that you gave. Analytics can actually change and redefine HR policies. I'll give you an example. 20 years back, when the IT companies started opening and then when they started opening shop, they were the first ones to do two things, and which was not unthinkable in the Indian industry. One was to allow spouses to work in the same company. That came out from analytics. The other was to allow people who are leaving to rejoin without asking too many questions. As long as that guy's past history is good, reasonably good, this question of no, this guy left us, we should not take him, that thing was moved out because of data. Because data said that when a person joins a company the second time, the chances of his leaving is very, very low. So it can actually redefine complete policies. Now, of course, the systems have to be appropriately defined. It's not like seeing an Excel and doing it. It will require study for a certain period, but it can redefine complete policies if it is properly done.
That was really great, Vikram. I have a question which is coming in from the chat box. Okay, there's a question from Mr. Sanjoy Mukherjee. Mr. Mukherjee's question is, how can we substitute the human touch in organizations and business in a data analytics driven world? What HR strategy and processes would you suggest to revive the human spirit in these times of new normal? It's a question close to my heart, and I look forward to both of you to please help answer this very quickly. Thank you.
Rahul, I think you should answer, and then I'll chip in, please.
Okay. Okay, why don't you go, Vikram, and then I answer.
Okay, so first of all, to answer Mr. Mukherjee, you cannot remove human touch. That is, systems are dumb systems unless humans guide them. Otherwise everything can be done by robots. Because the humans have to give that input to the system, and then only they will do this analysis. The rules have to be given by humans. based on observations. The thing about the thing that sometimes doesn't happen is we tend to think within a box. We don't think outside the box. So when this idea came up that you can have husband and wife working in the same organization, it would have come to somebody's mind. I don't know. When I joined a company and they said, I realized that, you know, this guy is this guy's wife. I said, how come they're working in the same? Oh, yeah, it's allowed. So that is where somebody would have brought this up, and then it spread like, you know, wildfire. Similarly, there was another concept I'd like to bring in here. You know, this whole big nasty issue of sexual embarrassment in workplace. Again, the IT industry took a very early lead in this. They formed laws where very senior people lost jobs. Now, the other thing that happened, which happened a little quietly and it was not very well publicized, is when there is a complaint by anybody on this subject, because this subject is taken up by a very senior committee in any organization and it's taken very seriously. But if there is a complaint which turns out to be false, then what do you do? That also happened because of analytics. That also was very, very seriously taken by no less than Mr. Narayan Murthy, that to discourage people from making false complaints, we should also take very firm action, if there is one. That came out from analytics. So people, I mean, one is Narayan Murthy saying something, okay, but he also said that I am not talking on my own, it is coming from data. Just to give you an example.
And
Great.
just to allude to Vikram, and Dr. Mukherjee is a known, I mean, he's a learned person from IIM Shillong and a personal friend. So I always feel slightly, you know, his questions are heavy. The question is short, but the answer is not short. So he has launched a question that the word touch itself is now becoming untouchable, if I may say, because it's all about contactless delivery. It's all about don't touch me, but I want the service. So except me and my body alone, two people now cannot come together. I mean, it's a tragedy of life. Now, I do not know when it will go away. The point is, how can HR, I mean, how can HR overcome this? Though we are separate, I think there is something, and this is close to Dr. Mukhopadhyay's work, of, inner calling or something surreal to bring people together. And I have seen in organizations, they try cohesive, fun, a rangoli, some sort of event, which is now virtual, a virtual chai. So these sessions are on to keep people together. But I do take the point that given we cannot expect a Rusi Modi now to again be reborn. I mean, that time is over. With a human touch who could really make changes, or any other great people manager of that caliber, because that time and age is gone. For whatever reasons, touch has become untouchable. So in such a scenario, if Dr. Mukhopadhyay asked the question that how can HR strategies, I think it is beyond HR, but at a depth level, a humanist or an HR professional who's true to his passion can build bridges by being very creative. Now, what has happened in reality is a business continuity program. If I look at our company and many others, they have just about survived in the last quarter. So there was something known as a BCP, a business continuity program that just, keep lie low, do not lose your clients, and clients are saying that, you must pay me because in COVID you didn't do as much work. So then the vendor is saying that it was force majeure. Then the client is saying, no, force majeure was not written in the contract. So, there were situations which were very, very tricky, and therefore that led to an atrophy of many clients going away and many clients not paying. And we know the brief story. So in this period, what HR has done is just to keep the boat going on. Keep a training program, keep a virtual thing going on, keep something going on to let people be on the boil. But on a long run, this touchless will not serve. So to answer Dr. Mukhopadhyay's question, is really we need something beyond the present. And that I think HR is working very hard and people are thinking that how they can go beyond people's professions, beyond that desk, beyond that cubicle, beyond that work to get into their space. And also, being that we work from home, I saw the other day there was a paper on invasion of the home has now become no longer a quiet place. The home has become now, so the lady of the house, let's say, I'm being slightly gender, or let's say whoever used to keep the house, he had a place of peace. Now that peace has gone away because all your computer, you are studying from this room, your son is studying from the other room. So it's become, the home has become an office, and
True.
officers are being they're letting off all these properties because they know that they can't. So I think we need to be creative, and it needs intervention. So I think Dr. Mukhopadhyay has given a retort to his rejoinder. So, but a great question, which cannot be answered, in a time-boxed seminar like this. But I think the question is fantastic. That HR needs to be creative, go beyond that, that toolbox, if I were to say.
Thank you, Rahulda. Dr. Mukhopadhyay happens to be my senior in college as well, and hopefully Dr. Mukhopadhyay got the response to this. Otherwise, I'm sure we can take it up offline as well. Now, it is my duty to hand over the audience and the proceedings to Dr. Gomes, because there are quite a few very interesting questions have come. I think the time limited, we can definitely take up quite a few of this. So over to you, Dr. Gomes.
Thank you, Ayon. So we have got questions from our Vice Chairman, Kolkata, Dr. Sangyukta Malakar. Her question is, how far business analytics helps in strategy building and policy making of an organization in the given situation of this pandemic? So over to you, Rahul and Vikram, both.
So first of all, it is, as we said, this is data analytics. So unless there is data of something, data analytics will not be able to do something. So let's be honest about it. And since the last pandemic of this nature apparently happened 100 years back, and data from that is very, very limited or not available, exact matching cannot be done for this issue. However, this is a major disruption that has happened to the world economy, to lives. Probably the nearest comparable event was World War II. And I'm not an expert in all this, but I'm just taking a guess. But I think what we can model is that, something has happened, and it's the 75th year of the end of World War II, is to pattern these events. And by the way, these kind of major events are referred to as black swan events. If you ask me, I will call this kind of event and the Second World War kind of event as a black swan of black swan. These don't happen too often, and use these for future. Now, having said that, there have been major disruptions and big events which have affected economies and lives in our lifetime. One was, of course, the 2008 banking crisis that started from the US. That was one, and of course the 2001 9/11 event. So these are events where, what happens during these times are very important to model for the future. And it is more important to collect data for this period. That is critically important, rather than trying to do an analysis. Because frankly, this analysis has of no value unless you can compare it with someone. So this is the time to collect data, and as much detail, as much granular as possible. That's my take on this. Rahul, please.
Thank you. Rahul, if you would like to say something on that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sangyukta, and good to see your question. So firstly, thank you for that question, and I think Vikram has answered it. I think it's very much needed. I mean, if you look at any decision making and strategy, the word strategy means time and money. So moment I utter the word strategy, it means a time horizon, it means money. So paisha shomoy, which is both finite and so very dear. So I think this so analysis, any boss, anyone, let's say even the ISTD leadership in which you are a part, if you were to, let's say, expend some time and energy into a program, it has to be a well thought out decision. So, and more so with the pandemic, because businesses are shutting down. So I think it becomes a great onus on the decision maker to rely on data and therefore have a strategy, which, as I said, is always heavily laden with time and money. If it's a plan, I would not say. If it's a policy, I would not say. If it's a strategy, I definitely would say that it needs an analytics backend or some sort of thought process before you go ahead with something, something grand or some.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rahul. There are two more questions which is very specific for the panelists. One is from Mr. Sadhu. He has asked that is agriculture supply chain productivity can be very demanding and focus area for our country in coming days. Is there any move in this direction at government level? Am I clear? Okay.
I need to unmute. Yeah. Am I audible now? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, and you know, it's a very, very important area that you have raised. And unfortunately, I have not seen much of an initiative. I have seen this in bits and pieces. There's a lot of work that goes on in some micro markets in South India, even to a certain extent in Maharashtra, parts of Maharashtra, very specific to you know, grapes. There's a big work that goes on around grapes, because you know, grapes help to use wines, and that has a big market, so there is money behind it. But unfortunately, the staple food crops that are so very critical for our food chain, I don't think there is enough work happening, and unfortunately, the government has not been able to prioritize it. I'll be very happy to know about it more, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah. Right. Rahul, you have any anything about it? Any information in this government level? Are they doing anything?
I think Vikram has answered, and thank you, Mr. Sadhu, for that question. And I think Vikram has already answered it.
Okay.
So no additional, really,
Okay.
add on to.
Okay, thank you. There is one specific question. After that, I will hand it over to Oyun. For Mr. Vikram, there is a question from Dr. Vijaya from an MBA institute. The question is, with respect to finance, what method of teaching can be used to prepare an MBA students for data analytics interpretation?
So first of all, you know, this is a subject where ultimately it has to deal with real life experience and real life data. So it is very important that there are industry layers to it, because data differs from industry to industry. Pure financial data may be similar. You know, the profit and loss and balance sheet may look very similar for all companies, but that is not analytics. Analytics goes much deeper, and it is across functions. So first of all, it is very important to layer these kind of teachings by industry, because one person cannot be expert in too many industries. There can be allied industries like financial services, could include banking, insurance, financial institutions. But you know, chemicals and petroleum data will be very different from banking data. So that industry layer is very important. That is number one. The other very important thing is to understand how the tools work, because the tools don't work the way the human brain works. They work a little differently. And it is very important to understand that, to be able to be that interface and give that structure to the tools. So these two are very important. One is the tool part of it, and mind you, technology is changing very fast. So the syllabus should be designed in a manner where it can be upgraded very quickly. It should not take 6 months to change a syllabus. Then we are gone, because of this industry moves very, very fast. And the other is the industry layer. These two are critically important.
Thank you, Vikram. Over to you, Oyun.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Gomes. I think we have had a very interesting interactive session, a lot of knowledge, a lot of data points, a lot of examples, a lot of concepts shared by the panelists. And thanks a lot for this. In fact, these are some of the elements that we have in our certificate programs on business analytics. We run certificate programs on business analytics. And anybody interested, please feel free to kind of write a mail, and we'll be happy to clarify and help you in your journey, because what we understand now from Vikram and Rahul is this is the future. This is the present, in fact. This is business analytics. So we have globally certified facilitators who keep on tweaking, modifying the syllabus, and we do a lot of online, on-the-job assessments, assignments, etc., which give practical, hands-on knowledge. Even software also is included in the program, and there's a certificate which comes in, right? So I'm sure everything to put together will prepare each one of us or the next generation, will equip us for the market of 2030, which is so very important. So great. I think if there is nothing else, I think it's time to kind of thank everybody, and the vote of thanks. Dr. Gomes, would you like to take over now, please?
Thank you, everyone. It was a very, very good session and very valid point we have discussed about this business analytics and working with numbers. So what we all feel, I believe that with this business analytics, it basically helps the small and large organizations to maximize the value of their data. So if you have this from Vikram and Rahul, I think all of us would understand that this is the future. And this is what is happening. So thank you, everybody. I would like to request Dr.
So Ruma, just one interruption. I
Yes.
see one chat here. Vinod Mishra's question is unattended. Can you read out that question before we
Okay,
pack up?
okay.
Even I have one question.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
please. Okay, so Mr. Mishra has a few questions. There are few questions which is also related to ISTD. I think Vikram will not be able to understand that, but he has got a question that do business analytics inculcating emotional loss or gains to HR? That is one. Second is there any watch and action on the organization, educational institutions which are terminating their professors or teachers, but to cover it with golden cover, they are asking to resign. So
I don't think that can be handled, because these will be it's a policy issue. But the first point that he mentioned about the emotional aspect, that is done by analytics, but of a slightly higher technology, where these are coming. I won't say they are there as yet. They are called cognitive analytics, where the impact of certain things and the reaction to that is also mapped. But that is still in a very nascent stage as of now. It's still not. It's not come to India.
thank you,
If I may add to this, Dr. Combs, analytics will actually help people who are getting benched or whatever, because they will show the data of possible opportunities, similar competencies, etc., in nearby organizations or locations. So I'm sure big data will help. Analytics will be able to help people get re-employed in the quickest possible point of time.
Thank you, Ayan, and thank you, Vikram, thank you, Rahul. Now I would like to also say to our participants that if you have any more questions, because of the paucity of time, we are not able to answer all the questions. So apology from our end. So if you have any questions.
Rumaji, I have one question.
Yeah, sir, you will ask definitely. So do let us know. We can send it to our panelists. If possible, they will give you the answer. Right. So, Dr. Joshi, over to you. After your question, you will
thank
give
you,
a
Rumaji,
concluding
and
remark. Yeah.
For a very, very absorbing session on data analytics. Being in HR for so many years, and as HR has to assist the business and the management in taking right decisions at the right time. But on many occasions, we have seen that data says something. Data says that you take this decision, but when we go to the management says कि इसको side में रख दो आप, because ये चलेगा नहीं, and we have so many other things also to consider, and the decision is taken in totally diametrically opposite direction. This situation we have faced so many times, because in public sector also I have seen we have sent people for specialized training in hydropower engineering. We have seen 45 days to Sweden and all that. Those people, they have come and they were specialized in certain particular areas of the hydropower generation. When they came back, I could not post them into the right areas. They said, "Nahi, inko wahan bhej do, unko wahan bhej do." It is so disgusting that even after doing right things, the decision is not taken. I mean, this HR finds a very, very tough, because we are always talking about the performance, the excellence, the profit, everything. But decision making becomes so different. So what do you suggest for HR people, how they should be able to take or guide the management in the right direction, so that really the data analytics can be utilized for improvement and betterment of the business? So I think Rahul Da will.
No, sir. With due respect, I mean, you asked. This was like a, Jeff Thompson or a Dennis Lilly bouncer. So at the end, so this was a speeding ball. So I have only this to say that, if HR professionals, and increasingly it's coming in with the younger generation, if they're indoctrinated, and one question also came in pretty much, like we say something in earlier times, and then the like Dr. Joshi says that in Heidelberg he has faced this. Similarly, when I was in BHL, I used to see people sent for training, and they did something else. Okay, so I
very right.
Similar. So I think a course on HR analytics would be good, just as a sensitization, so that I mean, from the cradle to the grave, when a person onboards to his life cycle, if there could be some way of sensitization him to analytics, whether you call it attrition, whether you call it onboarding, whether you call it succession planning, whether you call it compensation benefits. So if he knows the data, and if he has a fair idea of what would be people's motives, how would people behave, so I think, I mean, to answer you shortly, in a very short way, it's a deep question. I think something on data analytics, if an HR practitioner does, he would be slightly better placed to handle in today's world. That would be my first response to you, sir. But Vikram, would you like to add? It's a deep question. It needs.
No, so yeah, absolutely, Rahul. So first of all, sir, there is no substitute for human empathy and intelligence. No matter how much data or how much analytics we do, at the end of the day, the data is only for human consumption and appropriate action. So if you have the data and yet you act differently, then analytics can't really help. However, there is so what we have noticed is in terms of these business functions, HR has been the slowest adopter of technology and change. Typically,
True.
finance adopted change a little faster than HR, and it is only now that I am noticing that the organization change management that we see here, that is happening with HR now, only in the last 3-4 years globally, not just India. So I can only hope that these will change. And mind you, when things start changing, they usually change very fast. And the more we defer change, the faster the change happens. That's what we have learned from history. So I can only hope that things will change. However, let me tell you, sometimes there are organizational priorities which are driven by completely other reasons. So, and you and I, and we can't do much about it. So that's a reality. But we can only hope that things will change. I don't think I can say anything beyond that.
Thank you. One more question. The time has come now for HR to move quickly and adopt the analytics.
Absolutely.
Even though in the curriculum, HR analytics it is coming in shape, but somehow it has not been a forte with HR somehow.
Right.
So what, according to you, shall be an alarm call for the HR? Because the COVID times, you need a lot of data. Every day you need data to take decisions, because otherwise, if you do not have the right data, you cannot take decisions. So what will be your sincere advice to the HR practitioners, that what kind of policies and practices they should adopt to change the mindset?
So to put it very very briefly, I think and it is happening in many organizations, is to enable a culture. HR's one singular aim, if I may say so, is to enable a culture of learning, unlearning, relearning. This culture has to be imbibed very quickly, so that it doesn't matter who am I, whether I'm an engineer or an accountant or whatever. I should be ready to do anything that the company wants me to do, and the company is willing to empower and enable me to do. As long as the company is training me, that culture has been, especially in India, we have this whole notion, "Arey, ye to engineer hai, ye kya hai, why is he doing this?" This notion has to go, and HR has to enable that. And the cycle of the time that is available to learn, unlearn, relearn is fast reducing. Earlier, we could say that, if you know a skill, yet 10 years tak this will help you survive. Today, that is not the case. I would say maximum 5 years. Some new thing will come. So that mantra of enabling a culture of learning, unlearning, relearning probably needs to be imbibed by HR. Rahul, anything?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you that it's a changing time, and one has to go beyond the call of duty to really, empathize with people who are in grief, who are in distress,
Yes.
and that cannot be done over, very simply. So it needs for a high level of empathy, high level of what would I say? A sense of reaching out to each other in these torrid times. So I would, analytics is the hard part of it, but there is a softer aspect which needs to be touched by, I think, by an invisible hand. It cannot be done by rules, diktats, and procedures.
Thank you, Rahulji. A very apt answer. So, any more answers, questions are there? Ayan?
Sir, I think we need to conclude this because
Okay.
mostly every question has been answered. Few of them, whatever is there, they can answer it separately. And
Okay.
So you
Shall
can
we
just
conclude?
give a vote of thanks, and
Okay.
you can conclude.
Thank you, Romaji, and thanks the panelists, Rahul Da, Vikram, Ayan, Ruma. It was outstanding session. In fact, somehow HR analytics or analytics is one area wherein people are not very comfortable. It is considered to be the engineer's domain, and the
You are muted, sir. You are muted. Yeah.
you handled it very well. All of you gave beautiful answers. अकबर बीरबल की कहानियों से लेके सभी आपने किस्से सुनाए. Made it very, very interesting, Ultimately, you could connect with the audience, and that was great. So I'm extremely thankful to you for making this session very worthwhile. And all the NC members, our past presidents, all the audience, I thank you, especially Arpita, Ashok Panda, Durgesh Bhatt, Gobind Ram, Jibitesh Rath, Manvar Singh, Sahil Chatterjee, Samir Sahu, Vayan Kaushal, Partha Chakravarti, Mandeep, and there are so many others. I won't be able to name them, but all of you were present throughout the session, and that made our sessions great. And I thank everyone from my heart, my team, my national president, and Gurvinder, of course, my support for smoothly conducting the show. Thank you very much for joining. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar, sir.